I think Denver's going to win the title. I felt that way heading into the conference finals. I feel even more strongly about it now. It just seems like this thing they have going with Jokic, it is the ultimate cheat code right now. I don't see a scenario where they don't win the title unless somebody gets hurt. What are you seeing?
Jokic is the best player in the world right now. I mean, that goes without saying. I think
that's done, right? We've finished.
Yeah.
We're no longer accepting debates. We're turning you away at the door. We have decided this is now the best player in the world.
Yeah, I think he is right now. And I also, though, it's not just him. Like, it's Jamal Murray stepping up in the way he is. It's that entire roster. MPJ, like, look at the 1920 team. What they had, like the Will Bartons of the world on that team. And they've replaced those guys with KCP and Bruce Brown, who you raved about earlier, Jeff Green, Aaron Gordon, and I think, you got Michael Malone. He benches Gordon in the fourth quarter of game 3. And then Aaron Gordon, because he still has some offensive talent, comes out and has an explosive game on offense in game 4. Michael Porter Jr. Porter Jr., what was he back in 1920? He was still a wild card. Now MPJ, he's getting praised by Malone after games for not for scoring, which is what he was drafted for and known for, but because of his defense, because of making the extra pass, the rebounding. He has transformed who he is as a player. And honestly, like, MPJ Jokic has become an even better player from his MVP years. Murray has improved, but MPJ is the true, transformation story on this Nuggets team. It was the X factor that they took a gamble on, and it's been a total home run for them. And Malone as well. Like, it's not just the players, but Malone and that staff. They mixed up defensive coverages against Minnesota all throughout the series. They adjusted their help against the Suns throughout that series, but they, against the Lakers, stuck with the drop, even when it felt like sometimes it wasn't working in that game 4. Lakers are getting the basket, but they stuck with it. But they were also flexible.
Because they wanted LeBron to shoot.
Yes, exactly. They wanted him to shoot, and it worked out, but they were flexible with lineups. Sometimes, like when Jokic in game 3, he was in foul trouble. They're able to play small. I thought Malone has pulled all the right strings throughout the postseason in all 3 series. And those players, like, it's a culmination of the steps that they took since the last time, they faced the Lakers in the conference finals in the 2020 bubble. All the improvement individual players have made since then, and all the improvements the front office has made to that roster. It's built an absolute, machine. That's what it feels like they are right now watching them, whether they just seem unstoppable.
It was so funny sitting behind their bench for 2 games after sitting behind the Warriors bench for 2 games. And Kuminga, like, standing where Jim Goldstein was, basically, and Poole with the hoodie over his head, and Iguodala just walking around trying to, glue guys back together when that team was pretty broken. And then Denver, everybody's up. It's guys like DeAndre Jordan, who didn't play a minute, is super important on the bench. His arms are around everybody. People are standing on all the big plays. And then you watch Malone during the timeouts. And there was a couple moments, especially game 3 was really interesting because, the refs were just against them in that game. And they knew it. They know, like, this is what the league's like. We're up 2-0 in a series. We're on the road in game 3. We're not going to get a lot of calls this game. And Malone was working the refs, but not too much. And then on the bench was just trying to get them to calm down, to don't get distracted. Just do our thing. We're not going to get calls. Don't get caught up in that. And you could just see he's a real leader, and he's, it's what you think about when you think, unfortunately, about somebody like Joe Maz, who's barely coached. And you got Malone, who's been in the league now for 20 years, something like that, and has been in all kinds of situations. And he knew what was going on in that game before I did, with just where it was going officiating wise and everything. So the Jokic piece of this, and I know we're going to be doing a lot of Jokic content over the next couple of weeks, but I had that 42 club that I started in my book, where I was like, if the points, rebounds, assists in a postseason, if you add them up and they're 42 or higher, odds are they were a great player, right? And it's happened way less than you think. And the reason I made it 42 is because I couldn't stand Karl Malone. I thought he was overrated. And Karl Malone had a lot of 41.2s and 41.4s. So I was like, I'm making that to cut off. And I'm trying to find the list. So in 2018, LeBron for the playoffs was a 50.8. So that was, I think, the highest I measured. Yeah, I think that was the highest I've measured since the 80s. Jokic in this series, he's 29.9, 13.3 rebounds, 10.3 assists. So that's 23.6. He's over 52. Jokic might be starting the 52 club. And when you watch him in the games, it actually sometimes seems like his stats should be higher. Like I looked up a couple times, I'm like, oh man, only 20, 12, and 10 right now? It feels like it's a 30, 25, and 20. I've never seen anybody just more involved in a positive way with the offense, right? It's just all additive. It's unbelievable. He's so much fun to play with. And then the other guys start playing with like him. It's so funny to people, I think, like you and me, that the rest of the world, the casuals seem to be like, oh, this Jokic, he's really good, huh? And it's like, yeah, this is what we were fucking telling you guys for 3 years. This is why we voted him MVP and have Jamal Murray for 2 straight playoffs. Like this is the guy. So anyway, it feels a little victory lappish for me, but I'm taking it.
I mean, he is just a beautiful basketball player. And like, there's no other way to put it. He is a beautiful basketball player, I'm sure, to play with for all the guys in that locker room because he's so selfless and he just has such a contagious style. And all the other guys that they have, the Aaron Gordons, the Bruce Browns, those guys like to pass the ball too. So like they can relate to him, and they have the same DNA as players. He's just got this freakish DNA as a playmaker that nobody else on the planet has. And the fact that he's doing this at this stage, like regardless of the level of defense that he faces, it's like he's going as AD, who has had an unbelievable postseason on defense. He's one of the reasons, despite his ups and downs in offense and how frustrating his offense has been, his defense is the reason why they made the Western Conference Finals. He's pulverizing him. He's pulverizing the Lakers when they have Rui or LeBron on him with AD coming over and helping. It doesn't matter what you do.
And LeBron fouling him. LeBron just they turned the fouls off when LeBron got Jokic.
It doesn't
like, do
matter.
whatever you want. Yeah.
Because he figures it out. Like he's averaging 10.3 assists to only 3.5 turnovers in the postseason.
I know.
He doesn't make many mistakes at all. He makes the right play nearly all the time on the floor. He is super efficient from mid-range with those little flip shots he has, from behind the arc with those weirdo step backs or regular spot ups. It doesn't matter. He is Dirk Nowitzki. He is Zebo. He is Larry Bird, all in this 7-foot, 300-pound frame. He is unstoppable. And like, I think for the NBA, I was talking to somebody from the league and they're like, he still doesn't want to do interviews. And this was during the Western Conference Finals. Right. So he doesn't want to do interviews. We got to figure out, we got to figure out how to market him. I'm like, talk about his game. Like related
but
to
even
the
last
past.
night, this should have been like Jokic day today, and LeBron hijacked it in 20 minutes with the retirement stuff. And it was like, that's it, Jokic, you had your 20 minutes. I think about the guys I've watched in my life who had that kind of effect on their teammates. And it's really just him and Bird and Magic that I can remember, because even like somebody like Nash is a point guard. Ultimately, like, he couldn't create his own offense. You could kind of take him out at least a little bit, but he was such an unbelievable playmaker. And there's been a lot of good point guards who could do it, but it's really just Bird and Magic and Jokic. Even LeBron, as good of a passer as he is, I don't feel like it was never like this. It was the connective tissue that Jokic has with his teammates at all times. I've only seen it 2 other times, plus Bill Walton when I was like a little kid. And, I was 7, so I barely remember it. But it's just such a rare thing to watch somebody where they're so good at what they do that, like, Aaron Gordon's making backdoor passes. Like, you watched Aaron Gordon in Orlando. Nobody was like, Aaron Gordon, hell of a passer. But now, because all these guys have played with Jokic, they all they think like him. It's like this osmosis thing. And Murray's been the big revelation, right? Because he missed those 2 postseasons. I remember I did the trade value. I think I probably had him, what was that, January, February? I had him on some tier. It was maybe 30, something like that. Now, if you're like, who would you want for a playoff series? He's not one of the first 8 guys you take, but he's probably on that next list, right?
I'm pulling up your rankings right now just to double check. You had him 29, so top
29th.
Yeah, you had him right behind Ingram, Lowry, Markkanen, Siakam, Brunson. Like you'd
oh my
bump
God,
him up.
he's
You'd
he's
bump
in
him
the
up for
teens
sure.
now.
Yeah, no doubt
right?
about it. I mean, he's definitely like that. Like playoff performance is where you establish who you are and what your true value is. I mean, like you had Ingram one spot ahead of him, Zion one spot behind him. Those guys are more theoretical. We saw Ingram do it in one series against the Suns, but it's a first round series. When you do it round after round against different defenses, different types of defenders, and when you're building fatigue playing every other day, that's where you make your name and establish who you are. And Jamal Murray has done that. I mean, did it in the bubble. He has stripped himself of the bubble Murray nickname, and rightfully so with his performance now. Like I don't know, man. Like he especially, but everybody on that team, they found guys who are all selfless. And they're all willing to move without the ball. Like the two-man game with Jokic and the amount of chemistry that they have with the years they've spent together, the DHOs that they run where they just kind of flip the ball to each other. They just have such a feel. It's like you said, they're connected. It's like their brains are connected.
It's my kind of basketball, man. This is what I love. I'm so glad it's back. I wonder, is Jokic a unicorn, or will other people try to start playing like him? Or is this just like, this guy's from another country?
You can't.
This is not replicable. We're only going to get this once.
You can't play like him. No, like Jokic just has, like when I interviewed him years ago, I think it was 2018, when he was still doing occasional interviews. I did a story, the Nikola Jokic in the Nuggets Funky Bunch or something like that was the title.
I remember
of the story.
that. Yeah.
And like I asked him about, like, do you, with your passes that you make, do you practice some of those weird angles with your arm or anything like that to make it as pinpoint as it is? He was like, no, my whole life, like I just look at something and I throw it there and it goes there. It's just something he has on the inside. There's something that he has that nobody really does. And like it applies for him as a passer and as a scorer as well. Like it doesn't matter if he's looking at the net or somebody's hands spotting up from behind the arc. He just knows where to place the ball, and he just has so much foresight. You can't be like Jokic. You can't.
There's a hand-eye coordination that's just out of control. Like he had to play in the second half yesterday when he was posting up and Gordon cut, and he just quick flicked this alley-oop and just put it right next to the rim for Gordon. I was just like, I was like, wanted to look around in my section, like, do you guys realize how hard that is? Like, that's impossible. So he's got that. And then the footwork piece of it, it's just the part that's you can't wrap around your head is just like the way he looks versus what his hand-eye and his footwork is. It just doesn't make sense, right? It's like somebody made him in 2K and thought it would be funny to make a guy that looked like that had his body, but then had all these crazy skills, and you'd be like, oh, look at this guy. He had some drop step turnaround shit on Davis. I think Davis is probably when Davis is locked in like he was in the playoffs, probably the single hardest guy to post up. When you say, is there a harder guy to post up than him? And Jokic a couple times just was able to maneuver around him and get like drop step shit. I was just in awe. It's a really fun team to watch. Like to me, people will be like, oh my God, Denver, what the hell? To me, this is so similar to that first Warriors season. And I think they're even probably more closer to the 2016 Warriors. But that first Warriors season where we're like, really, this is going to happen? And then all of a sudden they won the title. And even nationally, people weren't really totally taking the Curry thing seriously. And it's just what this reminds me of. I mean, they were even odds in the Phoenix series. They had home court advantage, right? In this series, I think they started out minus 140 against this Lakers team with a guy in year 20 as their best player. That line climbed up to minus 160. Now it finally seems like they're getting respect, but I don't know. Did they throw people off that last month when they went into the funk, you think?
I think that was part of it for me. I mean, I picked against them last round against the Lakers. I was skeptical of their chances against the Suns too, with all their shooting on the perimeter with Katie and Devin Booker. Like, how would the Nuggets defend them? How would this defense translate? But it has translated. I mean, like that like I did a Jokic defensive video last year, talking to like Adam Mares, who's like a great Nuggets guy with like DNVR, his place is called. And like we talked about how he's improved physically, his conditioning, positionally, like how Jokic has just improved defensively. This was last season. But then that last month, like, you don't really know, is this him coasting and conserving energy for the postseason, or has he hit a wall? So that did play into, I think, the doubt that I personally had with Denver. I can't speak for anybody else, but that was part of it there. But they've answered every single question in every round of the postseason, playing different ways in each round. It's special, man. Like, they definitely are special. I can't wait. I really can't wait to see the way, ESPN, ABC, and the NBA especially market this guy, because this is the first time a lot of people are going to be watching him. And he does have such a likable game that you can tie to different eras of basketball. So will he if the Nuggets win the series, the NBA Finals, will he explode in popularity nationwide? He's this big 7-foot white dude. He's funny. He does have a good personality when you can put a mic in front of his face. Like, you get he ties his wedding ring to his shoes. You get the heartfelt stories and all that. Second round pick, right? Drafted during a burrito commercial. You got a lot of angles that we know about, but the casual fan who's tuning in for just the finals doesn't know about. I just want to know what happens to Jokic, after the NBA Finals, if the Nuggets win at all. Will he explode and become like one of the real faces of the game, even though that is the opposite of what he wants?
I convinced my wife and 2 of her friends to go to Game 3 because we had tickets in the Spotify suite. I'm like, just take it. They're like, they're not really basketball fans. I'm like, just go. It's LeBron. Like, he's the second greatest player of all time. And Denver has this guy you guys are going to be fascinated by. This guy, Jokic. Like, we don't care about Jokic. I'm like, just go. You're going to be fascinated by this guy. So they all went. And then after, they were like, that Jokic, what's going on with that guy? He's unbelievable. How does he do all that with that body? Like, they were just like dumbfounded by him. It's passing. But it's just, I do wonder, like, from a casual standpoint, to me, this could be like a pretty long run for him, right? Because he's got the right supporting cast around him. They're in a situation now that if you want to win a ring, that's a team you would look at. It's a team that's not afraid to spend money. I think you mentioned the Porter piece earlier. And Porter is the all-time hit or miss guy, but he's been way more hit or miss. Now he's starting to look like, what do you think, like 6'10"? Who? 6'10" Klay Thompson? Like,
something
Porter's
like
big.
that. In that realm. He's in that Klay Thompson realm. Like, Klay prime years could probably do a little bit more off the dribble than MPJ.
But coming around the screen sideways, just firing threes. He's
sure.
Also like he's got to be on the first team sneaky tall guys, where when you see him on the court, you're like, Jesus Christ, this guy's as big as Jokic is. I didn't realize he was this tall. And
he is unbothered. Anytime he gets the ball in his hands and he launches for his 3-pointer, it doesn't matter how hard your contest is. He is unbothered. You can be in his landing space and it doesn't matter to him. That's how good of a shooter Michael Porter Jr. is. And now he's also a good defender. He's become a good defender. He used to suck on defense. He was a negative defender. He's become a positive, and he rebounds and he competes and he makes the extra pass. I mean, like,
I like him. I really like his game.
He's great, man.
The other thing with Jokic that I think you really notice in person more than TV is, he does those handoff things, but he's so big that he just knows exactly how to plant himself in front of these guys. And you watch these guys bounce off him and it looks like it hurts. You don't feel it on TV, but in person, like, Schroeder's bouncing off him because he doesn't really realize the screen's there. And he's like going backwards and he's like making a face, and the way he's just so smart with how he uses his body. Now we're having a Jokic chasm. Listen, it's nothing new to us, but it was really fun to watch on a big stage with LeBron, especially last night, throwing everything he could. And Davis, who I thought played pretty well in that game, especially on defense, and just they're trying to gear everything to stopping him. And it just didn't matter. There's some bad blood if it ends up being Miami that I'd forgotten about, that a lot of people were talking about last 2 days, dating back to the Morris twin. And so that could be a feisty series, but I just think physically they don't have anything close to the beef to stop that team.
No, I mean, Denver is 6-0 against Miami. I started my research this morning. 6-0 against Miami in their last 3 seasons. Jokic has dominated every single matchup. You can look at the second spectrum matchup data. It doesn't matter what Miami's done against him. He dominates. I think it'd be really tough for Miami. Like, Bam is an awesome defender. He can.
So Denver's ready for Miami to close this.
I think so. Yeah, I would think so rather than Boston.
So they're going to pay Jeter and A-Rod not to go to Game 5 and Game 6 and Game 7.
That really was a bad omen for Miami, Bill. Seeing those guys,
if I was a Heat fan, I would have been so bad.